morning. Good morning. It's great to see Priscilla here with the newest member of online learning for the state of Oklahoma. It's my pleasure to welcome you to our first session today and to introduce our presenter, Alicia Ridenour, Southeastern Oklahoma State University, where she serves as the Assistant Director for their CIDT, an instructional designer, an adjunct instructor, one of us that wears many hats and is very active in the state of Oklahoma for online learning. So with that, welcome, Alicia.
All right, so we're going to be talking about regular and substantive interaction today. So there has been a lot of talk about regular and substantive interaction in the last few months. And institutions are now expected to ensure that our professors are giving regular and substantive interaction to our students. And those institutions that are not accredited to give correspondence courses, according to our new definition of distance education, need to make sure that our students are receiving that regular and substantive interaction. And so that needs to occur between the student and an instructor prior to the completion of a course. Now, how does that happen? So that's what we're going to talk about today. So we're going to talk about some ways that can occur within your LMS and ways that your instructors can do that at your university. So that occurs by providing the opportunity for substantive interactions with the student on a predictable and scheduled basis, commensurate with the length of time and the amount of content in the course. So what does that mean? That means that when you have a course, whether that be 16 weeks, 7 weeks, 2 weeks, 8 weeks, 4 weeks, no matter the time, the length of time of the course, that there is enough opportunity for that student to interact with the instructor. Now, how that can occur can vary. And these are some ways that can occur. Office hours. So we know that there are various ways that an instructor can communicate office hours, but we're going to talk about ways that count towards RSI. If you post office hours in a syllabus, they have to be available for a specific time and a specific modality. So if you are one of the instructors that you just post to be determined as needed, email me for a specific date or time, those do not count as RSI. If you say, I have online Zoom hours from 8 to 9 on Tuesday mornings, then those would count as RSI. Setting up regular office hours and reminding students of them regularly via announcements or reminders in your course, that does count. Only offering students the solicited office hours and not during regularly scheduled times is not going to count as RSI. Setting lock until dates in your course, whether that varies by LMS. Otherwise, if your course is just open from the beginning to the end, then your course is considered self-paced. And most correspondence courses are considered self-paced. So a rule of thumb would be to only unlock modules as far as you are willing to interact or grade ahead. Why? Because that maintains a level of engagement with the students that allows you to monitor, that allows you to talk with them, that allows you to go in and give feedback, and it allows the students to also interact with each other. Yes.
Can I ask about that?
Absolutely.
So I get lock until, I get that, but what if you have due dates? So like the first week, this is due, and then the next week, something else is due, third week, something else is due. They can't go back. So would it be self-paced?
You're still pacing the students. And as
Okay.
long as you're pacing the students,
Okay,
so interaction and monitoring can occur.
okay,
That
Right.
is key.
I just wanted to make sure. All right.
Another way is through announcements. A lot of us send announcements in our courses, but a lot of us send housekeeping type announcements. Hope you guys have a great spring break. Okay, those are housekeeping announcements. In order for an announcement to count as RSI, they need to be regular and predictable. A student needs to know when they're coming out. They don't need to be sporadic. They don't need to be sent on a Tuesday morning one week and a Friday afternoon the next week, or during the first week of class and the last week of class because you forgot to send out any announcements in between. In addition, they need to have something specific about the content of the course. A good example and something that you can schedule ahead of time is if you do reading assignments in the course and you send them out on Monday mornings at 8 o'clock. Draw attention to something that the student should pay attention to in the reading. That's content specific. That's not anything that you would have to go in and change every semester. And that's something that you can go in and set up ahead of time. Then, if you need to go in and modify that and add additional things to it, you can go in and modify it as the course goes along. Feedback. Comments like good job or needs improvement are not personalized written comments. They're not specific to every student. Feedback given on discussion boards, quizzes, assignments, and in rubrics and exams that are auto-graded are not going to count towards RSI. It should communicate their accomplishments and areas that they may need to improve, but also areas that they did well in, okay? It should give them concrete suggestions for actions that they could take to make progress in their learning. We all have the rubrics that are numbers, 1 to 5. Did they do well? Did they not do well? They may have scored a 1, they may have scored a 5. If all you do is go in and number 1 to 5 and you go through and you just click the numbers and then you click submit, those do not count towards RSI because no substantive feedback was given to the student.
Can I ask a question? I'm
Sure.
very new to this, so I'm a little confused. When you say count toward RSI, to who? I'm not really understanding what you're asking.
There's a federal definition of regular and substantive interaction that the Department of Education came out with in 2001. 2021? I said 2001. I'm sorry. 2021, my bad. Way back in the day. No, 2021. And that definition was updated. If colleges are not providing regular and substantive interaction within a course, then the university can be sued. And there has been litigation that has been associated with that.
Is it possible that you could speak without your microphone because it's projecting into the next room and we can't hear our speaker? Sure. Thank you.
We really need the mic. I am hearing this room more than I'm hearing you already, and the people on Zoom need to be able to hear you.
So that means that she should not use her microphone either until it's fixed. Okay,
Well, they have to have the mic.
Oh, they have to have it for Zoom.
but we'll take care of the people here first and then we'll turn it on when it's ready so that the Zoom people can hear. Because right now, you guys can't hear.
Okay. I don't know. How about I'll move this way a little bit and, okay. And then I'll talk this way. I don't know. Yeah, it's on for the Zoom people. I'm sorry.
Real life.
Yes, exactly.
And I don't know, could you do where they can hear you?
I don't know. Zoom can hear me there.
Dawn's on there.
Okay. And I do apologize. Yes.
I just had a question on set announcements. I have a module every week that they open, and in there it talks about what content they should really pay attention to. Video. Would that take the place, or do you?
It could, yes. And what you're wanting is, and we'll talk about it, you want 2 of them within a course, the duration of a course. Okay, 2 examples of regular interaction, 2 examples of substantive interaction. And I should have probably included the entire definition, but I thought that people were tired of hearing the entire definition. Because I feel like we have attended so many things about regular and substantive interaction lately. I do apologize for not including that
Where do you
initially.
find the definitions?
Even if you just Google federal definition of regular and substantive interaction. An example was Western Governors University was sued for like $425 million. And it sat in court for like 2.5 years. They had to go through and show like per course that they were providing regular and substantive interaction to their students via feedback, via announcements, that they were not correspondence courses because they were not accredited to provide correspondence courses.
So what I'm hearing is an assessment from online courses that faculty are going to have to provide to show regular and substantive.
That they are not going in, starting a course
Got it.
and making it just an auto run course that the student never has any contact with the instructor.
So, and faculty are going to have to provide that.
They are going to have to provide some monitoring and some interaction with the students in the course.
Well, and showing that, which would be assessment of that.
Showing it is also providing documentation within the LMS. And the Department of Education actually clarified that here about a year ago. They said that as long as that you can provide documentation within the LMS, which is, storage of announcements, storage of feedback on exams, things like that, that is enough documentation.
And even, so private, after they submit an assignment or an exam or whatever it is, the private information where you can go into like SpeedGrader and can other people see that? Can you see that?
Yes,
Uh-huh.
well, I was
Yes.
going to say, along with the LMS tools
Mhm.
do track
They do track that.
communication.
Mhm.
We have Canvas at Owensville KC. Yes, I can see what you're talking about.
Okay, even though it's private between me and the
Yes.
student, you can see
I
that.
can see if it
Good,
helps.
all right, that's all I wanted to know.
What I was going to volunteer is that it does seem like it's a lot, but some of this stuff is automatically handled. When you communicate with your student using the LMS, if you send them feedback, submission comments in Canvas at least,
Yes.
it tracks it, it notes it. You can even look at a graph and analytics page. It shows the communication, who initiated it, when they initiated it, all of that. And you don't have to do anything more than do what you normally would do. It's documenting that for you.
Okay, good, all right.
And another,
I'm calling it.
another point to that, we found out on our campus last year that some of our faculty were deleting their entire course at the end of the semesters. Don't do that. That's what we rely on for. Don't delete your course ever. Just leave it there. It'll just live there.
Yes.
I was just going to ask about, and I already know the answer, I believe. But, so for example, students might share with you work in Google Docs, giving you commenting or some level of engagement, interaction in that actual document, and that does not count. And so strategies for being able to put that in a helpful way to the student, but also document in Canvas or whatever the LMS is there something there? I mean, I've just been duplicating it. So I put it in their document
That's a
and then
good way.
I summarize it.
And let me also say, most of us are already doing a lot of this anyways. You're only required 2 substantive, 2 regular interactions for the duration of a course. Okay.
First student.
I'm gonna get back to this, and I promise this is gonna answer a lot of questions. Okay. Message students who from the Grade Center. Reach out to students who are not engaged, who are doing poorly, or who may not be attending class. Again, and that is a Canvas option. I'm sure that Blackboard has something else like that, giving feedback. Monitoring is key. Monitor your students, reach out to your students, communicate with your students. Statistics, that's another thing. In Canvas, there is a statistics area, new analytics in Canvas. She talked about pulling analytics on instructors and the communication between instructors and students. That is another area that we can pull on the LMS side. But I also want instructors to feel comfortable because we get a lot of questions of, am I doing this? Am I meeting this? Check the boxes. Grading notes. If you don't know, in Canvas, there is a column that you can add a column in that grade center, and it's right next to their name, and it's grading notes. You can put notes in there, emailed student and the date. You can also put office hours, put the date that they came to office hours. So you can document within Canvas. Also, send yourself emails. Those are notes back and forth to yourself. Those are actually very credible in a court of law. Notes to yourself because they are date and time stamped.
Are you, within the LMS?
You can do that within the LMS or just from your Southeastern email.
Okay.
Either one, yeah. But if it's not within the LMS, you can email it back to yourself. Yes.
They make a teams also, so we email, so if you email from Canvas or Brightspace, that saves it time. If we got rid of the teams,
Right.
so emailing the class was done the wrong way, there's some of the. That.
Yeah. But I think there's a box now that says email them individually that you can check.
Yeah.
So if you do email the class, if you check that little box that says email students individually, that's a good way to get around that. Okay. Including a midterm survey for students. That is also getting feedback from the students, but then also make reasonable changes and report back the changes to the students. If we've all had an epic disaster in our courses that we just thought that it was going to be the best thing ever, you guys know what I'm talking about. Give a midterm survey and say, do you like this? Do you like the summaries that I've been doing? Are my notes great? Are the lectures a good length for you? You know, just get some feedback from your students and then post an announcement letting them know if you made some changes to it. That is them giving you feedback and you reacting to that feedback and giving them information. So that's another way. All right, substantive interaction. This is engaging students in teaching, learning, and assessment consistent with the content under discussions and also includes at least 2 of the following. So we're going to need to get 2 of these in during the length of the course. All right. One of the things that you can do is you can do virtual class meetings. Our education department is wonderful about this and they get excellent feedback from students. Breakout rooms, collaboration. These are some examples. Breakout rooms, collaboration spaces, presentations where they can share their screen, a locked conference space, office hours, using study or review sessions that you're present for. If you guys have InSpace or Zoom, it doesn't matter. Both of those are good. You need to include some type of student interaction there. You cannot go in there and just give a lot of information, basically just lecture, but there needs to be some type of interaction between you and the students. Personalized feedback. Again, it needs to be initiated by the instructor. That is key on this. Any type of interaction between you and the student, in order for it to count towards RSI, it doesn't need to be Jim Bob reaching out to you about his grade. It needs to be you reaching out to the student. So it needs to be initiated by the instructor. It can be text feedback through the Canvas gradebook, video or audio feedback. If you're one that your fingers just get really, really tired, use the notes function on your phone and record your feedback on it and then copy paste it into an email, send a bunch of them to yourself and then copy paste it into the feedback section for your students. It's a workaround. Also, there is a record in Word, a dictate button that you can use.
And
Uh-huh.
I keep a file of basic template feedback for different assignments.
Yeah,
I've annotated bibliography, and then I have a spot in there personalized for whatever the student did wrong. But I have a template, okay, you missed this piece, you missed this piece.
mhm.
It's just template stuff that I can kind of short circuit.
Yes. And Canvas has a canned feedback area that once you start using something over and over and over again, you can actually select it. But if you do that and you have something personal typed there, it will override it. If you're going to type something personal, do the canned feedback and then type your personal message at the end. Just something we see a lot. Interactive videos. Lecture videos in online courses is something that has been a hot topic for this. If you are going to pre-record a lecture and post it to an online class alone, that does not count towards RSI. However, if you have a learning activity that goes along with the pre-recorded lecture, it can be a quiz, a discussion, an assignment, or it can be like embedded questions within it. That would count, and it has to clear up student misconceptions with the lecture. Then it would count towards RSI. So what it's trying to promote is student interaction within the lecture. So if it's just a pre-recorded lecture, it's not going to count. But if there's something that promotes some type of interaction with the students, then it would count towards RSI. All right. Annotation tools when grading, that is feedback specific to the student. Again, speech to text comments. I use that a lot, especially whenever I'm in the car. Yes.
So it would be-
Okay.
You do the lecture, and then you have a quiz associated with it, that is automatically created, that's not.
It would be if it was about the lecture specifically. Now, if you did a lecture on chapter 5 and it's just about chapter 5, that's questionable. Okay. And they don't give a straight answer. And there are people that have asked the Department of Education to give a specific answer, and they kind of talk around it. So that is their answer. Yeah, they leave it very broad. Yes.
For the people on Zoom, repeat their questions. They can hear you, but they can't hear them.
Oh, no.
You don't have to do
Okay.
that.
Okay. Speech to text comments is something you can use within your LMS. My husband and I, when we're in the car together, a lot of times I will use speech to text and he's like, what? And he always wants to know what I'm saying. And I'm like, I'm not talking to you. And then it like translate at that in my comments. And I'm like, no. And then it's like, no. Yeah. So a comment library, that's the canned comments I was talking about in Canvas. You can put emojis and group comments. Emojis do not count towards RSI. It's not like that. Okay. Rubrics. Rubrics, you can move those from Blackboard to Canvas and back. Again, you can add those to assignments, graded discussions, and quizzes. The rubrics are a best practice for communicating criteria and achievement levels, but again, it has to be that personalized feedback to that student. If it's just a bunch of numbers and then generates a total, then that's not going to count towards RSI. Yes.
On the rubrics, like I do this 1 point, half point, 0 points, and then I have feedback for each one.
Yes, so they're asking about individualized feedback per area on a rubric, and does that count? Yes, that would count. Yeah, it doesn't just have to be like cumulative feedback. It doesn't have to be.
It can't be just the number.
It can't just be the number, but explain why you gave the number. Yeah. All right, student emails. This is important. You need to give a timely response to student messages and emails. You need to be proactive. You need to be available to students. All right. Anyways, sorry. Student emails are available There's a PC and an app version in most LMSs. A benefit of that, you don't have to navigate away from Canvas or Blackboard to respond to your students. In our LMS, in Canvas, it auto forwards those to your inbox in our SE email address. So it auto forwards those, and vice versa with the responses. Now, it keeps those in a log. That then Canvas generates a report that says, this professor had contact with this student. And then it tells how many times that you had contact with Jim Bob in your class. Gave feedback on this many assignments, sent this many emails, and it even says the last date you had contact with Jim Bob. Put your contact information in your syllabus and in your introduction. A welcome video. Again, another one of those things that it talks, that the federal Department of Education talked around. I'm not sure that they necessarily gave a definitive answer. Q&A discussions. All discussions, in order to count towards RSI, the instructor needs to be present and you need to be facilitating the discussion. That doesn't mean that 2 weeks after it's over, you go back in and plug in a few comments. Facilitation is ongoing as the discussion happens. So any type of discussion. So be present in those. All right, discussion tools. Again, that's other things. A to-do list and to-do dates. I'm sorry, I'm running out of time. Mark your calendar. Schedule some time. That is imperative for me. If I don't set the time aside, then I forget. So set that aside and remain consistent throughout your semester. And that will help you actively facilitate your course. It'll help you block off office hours and things like this. Again, interaction is initiated by the instructor. Provide direct instruction. Provide feedback. Respond to questions about the content. Facilitate your course. Monitor your course. Not interaction, any interaction with artificial intelligence or adaptive learning. Again, those third-party things that they just get in and go through simulations or modules, that isn't it. Interaction that's not with the instructor. If you have a coach or if you have a TA, it's up to the accrediting body whether that counts as the instructor. The instructor is you. So remember that. Not substantive, auto-graded assessments, rubric with only numbers, pre-recorded videos, and interactive computer-assisted instructional tools. Again, regular interaction. You need to provide opportunities for your students to interact with you. They need to be predictable. They need to be scheduled. They need to monitor. You need to monitor your student engagement and their success. You are responsible for promptly and proactively engaging the student when needed, based on monitoring or when the student requests that. So if a student emails you, you need to get back with that student. And that is all that I have. And I think it's straight up about the time that we have to go. Do I? Okay. Oh, I was like, oh my gosh. Okay. So you guys have a lot of questions. I know y'all had a lot of questions. So I was like, I got 30. Okay, sorry.
Can we get your presentation?
Absolutely. Yeah, no problem. I may have it on here. Do I?
Yeah.
Okay, it's not exactly, it's yours, it's ours from when we presented it before, but hopefully it's near what this was. It had the generality there. What's that?
The lab simulation I use, has like short answer questions that I have to go back and grade, and then it gives student feedback, but it's not on the Brightspace, so it isn't saved there, but it is saved somewhere. Should I save it
So
also?
a participant's asking about lab simulations. So this is what my recommendation is there. If you have things that are auto-graded, or if you have lab simulations or something like that, just to be safe, I always go back in and do feedback within the LMS just because I want to be protected. A lot of those third parties now, some of those classes are gone in the wind. I mean, in a year. And I don't know what your university's policy is on how long that you have to maintain course data.
Well, I made it.
Okay.
It's not fully a simulation. It's, here's the data, or you get it at home and you answer these questions.
Okay. So I always give feedback within my LMS just because I want to make sure that it's there, because I know that we store it a longer amount of time than the third party does. I'm one that I always want to protect myself. So I probably do more than what I should.
Can I just add something quickly? To that?
Yeah.
We've had several instances, I'm stepping from Cameron, but we've had several instances where our faculty used those third-party sources, and either the student withdrew, there was a financial aid issue, and I was asked to look at another semester or a year later. And if it's a different faculty, I cannot access their private third-party, whatever, if it's McGraw-Hill, here's whatever they're using. And so some of that data was missing. And so then we had to track them down, and then that ended up being a huge issue. So having your feedback in that LMS, regardless if the faculty person leaves, someone's coming in, or there's an emergency, you always have that, and that definitely, you know, secures you, I think, from, you know, any liability. You have that, or the person coming in has that.
So they were just discussing that keeping everything in the LMS is good if a faculty member leaves.
That's also where like having the notes column, or even if you have most of the comments on that external site, if you go into the grading area of the Blackboard or whatever you're using and put something in there saying feedback was given here, then at least it's some documentation.
And that notes column is on the grade. It's on the grade.
In Canvas,
In Canvas under the grade book.
you have to turn it on, but it's just in the settings.
Okay.
So they were talking about in the Grade Center that there is a notes section. And so you can turn that on and add additional information there.
And that's for can the students see that as well?
No.
No, the students cannot see that additional information in the Grade Center.
We use Navigate at Eastern now. And so a lot of texting interaction is done through that, but that should be able to be tracked. Shouldn't it? The university system, that should be okay.
They were talking about university systems being
Maybe
tracked.
too, and I realized the difference of the two, but I was thinking.
Yeah.
Navigate too.
Yeah. You know, tools out on the internet are great. They are wonderful. However, keep yourself some notes of having that there, even if, you know, if you're interacting with the student via web page, via blog, you know, via YouTube, whatever it happens to be. If they're getting a grade for it and you are giving them feedback on it, I would recommend putting that feedback in the LMS just to protect yourself. Yes.
Who's actually like the person who's responsible for checking at all courses, or is it just supposed to be, hey, faculty, you're doing what you're supposed to until you get a student complaint?
Who's responsible for checking the courses? I think it varies by university. At some universities, it's department chairs. At some universities, it's deans. At some universities, it's a best practice. And so instructional designers work with faculty to ensure that regular and substantive interaction is taking place. At our university, we really started hearing a lot about it, not this past summer, but the summer before. And at that point in time, you know, we were coming back from COVID. And so we were looking at best practices in our online course. And so we had a lot of faculty during that time that were redoing their courses. And so when RSI came up, they also wanted to ensure that they had regular and substantive interaction with their students in their courses at the same time. And so when they would come to our office or have us look in their courses or do their course copies, then they would just ask us to take a quick peek. And so I'm not going to say we had a checklist, but we sent out emails from our office and we're like, this is what counts as RSI and this is what doesn't count as RSI. Well, then they came back and clarified even more. And because in the beginning we said, oh, put videos in your course, that counts. Well, then they came back about a year later and said, not just videos. You can't have just videos. They have to have some type of interaction to show that they're actually watching the video or that they're interacting with the video. And so they continue to adapt what they're accepting as regular and substantive interaction. So
that's where we all need that interactive software where we can put the questions throughout the videos and just start making practices of those.
And the other thing that I find is that, I teach online too. I have great intentions in my design, in my course design. A lot of times I don't have the best practice. I have great intentions some weeks to get into those discussion boards and interact with them like a bunch, or to give great feedback, and then life happens. Keep in mind, it's not all the time, every day, giving feedback on stuff. If you don't have time, go in and create a checklist of your students and give half the class feedback on exam 1. And then go into the next exam and give your students great feedback on exam 2. It only has to occur 2 times within the duration of the course. For the student, yes, for each student. Jim Bob doesn't need to get through your course and never have any interaction with you. So, but if you're going through and you're sending out an announcement every Monday morning at 8 o'clock that says that they need to go in and pay attention for reading, that's reaching all of your students. So keep in mind that there are tools in there that you can use to reach all of your students at once.
That's still considered an individual.
It's still considered an individual. Yeah, it is.
Everything you just said reminds me of Oliver Quality Matters.
I know, right?
It does.
Breaking down quality.
Yes.
HLC access.
Oh, yes. We had an HLC visit here just a few months ago, and HLC asked us in multiple meetings, how are you assuring that RSI is taking place in your online classes? We didn't have a good answer.
Did they ask for access to some of the courses?
The last time they did, this time they did not. But
Not that we're aware of, let me say that. They're asking if HLC asks for any access to our courses. Not that we're aware of, but they may have that we didn't know about. But I didn't have a good answer. I don't know for sure.
you could tell them that we were training, but they wanted to know how we validate, and we don't have a way.
We don't have a way to validate right now.
But by the next time, we need to.
Yeah.
So if you had a couple institutional parameters that said we would love, we strongly encourage instructors to do this and this in their online courses. That would be a step in that direction to be able to say, this is what we strongly encourage faculty to do.
I mean, we showed them that we were doing multiple trainings. It's really not an encouraged thing. If a student comes back and says, I did not have any interaction with the teacher in this course, I want my tuition back.
Right now,
On the spot.
they're giving it back.
Yeah.
Lots of universities are. Kate, what is it? Oh, sorry.
I was just gonna ask, I mean, and maybe this is something you're not saying because it's particular to Southeastern, but doesn't our course review process, is that what you're saying?
No, because that's not facilitation. That's
Yeah.
RSI is facilitation.
Yeah.
RSI is facilitation, not design.
But you say that, for instance, auto-created, tailored announcements were in the course when you
Yeah.
saw it.
We can look for things.
Yes.
that show that it's intended. We just can't verify that it's.
Yes. We also work with Murray, and Murray had asked us to create something for their instructors that they could look at. And so we created kind of a rubric for them, and it had checks next to design, and it had checks next to facilitation. And it was meant for the instructor to look at, did they include it in the design?
This was.
It was a self check. And then after the course was over, you could reflect on your course and say, did I really do this during facilitation? I'm sure you can. Yeah.
We'll see when we evaluate our instructors, we have some level of training on how to assess on the
Mhm.
online courses. It is very, very difficult because
Yeah.
as a department chair, I don't have access to the email they send to their students for
Mhm.
a lot of really good reasons.
Mhm.
I can see if it's an announcement, I can see some feedback, I can see if they gave feedback within the LMS. So,
Mhm.
so one of the things is just, like we have this, but we don't assess every single object every single semester.
Mhm.
Right? That would be awful
Uh-huh.
for everyone. So there's some of those ways that we're doing it, if it's not,
Mhm.
for creditors, whether that's.
Yeah. So they were talking about assessing their instructors, their adjuncts, that kind of thing, and about how that they don't do that necessarily every semester because that would be a lot of work.
A question.
Okay.
Just put you guys back my brain.
Okay.
The same thing. So I'm thinking an easy solution to try to keep track with what faculty are doing. Like it could be through Blackboard and assignment with our faculty in it, or like a shared drive maybe, where they provide the examples they do on a regular basis in each course. Which I don't mean a full-on report, but just a couple screenshots. It would probably be repetitive, sorry. And then we would have that as documentation to use later with HLC.
So-
It's fresh on the
I
mind.
think that was good.
Yeah.
It was just at the end of the term,
Yes.
every instructor saying, this is how I did it.
I mean, even kind of on the rubric that we created, I think even if they did it, even if a narrative was present of this is how I designed it in my course and this is how it was done during the facilitation.
Like that.
Yeah.
So, like, again,
Yeah.
It's a step.
It is,
It's just protect.
yeah, it's almost a self-review, I think, unless,
She's not talking about showing you what students.
no, no student data would be shown.
Really careful with really.
Oh, absolutely.
So if you did it at the end of the term, the instructor could say, I sent weekly announcements, I met twice.
So they're
on
talking
Zoom,
about
I
how
spent hours
it can be
time,
proven
and
at the end of a semester
and provided feedback by.
without showing any student data.
That doesn't involve any student names, it's just, this is what I.
All right.
Yeah, as instructors, we
think
forget what we do.
that,
too. It would just be a little
Um,
reflection and know that someone's looking at it.
I do think we should be transparent with faculty because like you said, faculty are gonna take this very personal. Like we're micromanaging, we're gonna attack them. So as we go back, I feel like they've got to get the buy-in involved in that process. And we struggle with a lot of that. We learn the hard way. Hey, we just transparent with the ladies, because this is what it means. It's not me after you. It's how do you show this and how can we as a team provide that to HLC?
absolutely.
The things that done much better because we saw the faculty that get really stressed about it.
I was an instructional designer and faculty for a year, and they added it to their contracts for their online, college and studies did, that you had to respond to 30% of the students in your discussions every week. So if you had 30 students, you had to respond to 30% of them. And they actually employed someone to go in and check.
So they were talking about how that at OU, that was part of the teacher contract, that they had to give feedback to 30% of the students every week.
In your face, like.
All right. Well, I think that we're about done here. And so I am going to go ahead and end the record. So thank you guys for attending, and it was great for you to be here.